that I can remember. Oh, I kicked a dog once. These funky movies where it's like this affected this, which affected this, which affected this, if he had never done this.
I know if you had never met him, he'd probably still be alive.
That's true.
Yeah, but that's because you killed him.
No.
Jodi, you did.
I did not.
Jodi.
This is a really trivial question, and it's going to reveal how shallow I am. But before they book me, can I clean myself up a little bit?
You're going to be taken the way you are.
That'd be great. Yay, bottled water. Never put my makeup on in front of a total stranger, but that's okay. You're not that much of a stranger. It's been like weeks since I put makeup on. I'm glad to see this is waterproof. I don't plan to cry, but, you know, I probably won't. Whatever you want to change, or if you don't think something looks right, just let me know. I'll adjust it. I guess if I start getting shiny, then we can take a break. Can you do me a favor and just hold that?
Sure.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Ah. There are a few reasons I did that, and one of my first thoughts when I was actually being booked. I was a little like, wow, I see this stuff on TV all the time. This is so interesting. It's almost just like it is on TV. And then also part of the fact that I knew it would be all over the internet, so why not? And then in the meantime, smile, say cheese. Hey, you know, he would fall on your knees. Oh, hear the angel voices. Oh, night divine. Oh, night when Christ was born. Well, I appreciate your vote. Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you. I didn't get a chance to introduce myself when everybody's miking you up.
What network are you with?
I'm with CBS.
Oh, cool. I'm already speaking with CBS. Oh, you're the Tammy that was
Yeah,
in.
I'm
Okay.
the one that you were supposed to be speaking with.
Okay, cool. So you're flying to Vegas?
No, it's actually a producer that does freelance out there. She's the one that we were talking to, and I'm helping her out. So it's kind of confusing. Different states. Different
Sounds
people.
exciting. Either way.
Oh, I already wiped it.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, where it's
I guess that's really all I needed. Sorry. Don't roll the tape yet.
Mr. Burns, I think you might have already answered this question, but I was afraid it might have got lost in the other voices speaking. Mr.
I'm concerned about the speaking voice. If he has something to say to me, he can say it directly.
State your next question.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, I'll just with regard to this particular camera, and you said that it was 45 seconds, right?
Yes.
Did that take 45 seconds, sir?
Judge, I'm going to object. That's evidence that was just dropped on the floor. Okay, we're going to take...
More like a circle if you want to get into geometry.
Sir, that's not my question to you, is it? I'm asking you who's making the money, aren't I?
The people who work the hardest.
Sustained.
Who we've talked about 2 times. What about the 3rd time?
Well, let's continue on with that time.
Sir,
I met her several...
I'm asking you when you met her the 3rd time. You don't get to ask the questions, I do. So when was the 3rd time you met her? During this time, again, everyone during the day is expected to dress professionally, right?
Right.
And that's how she dressed, correct?
And in the evenings as well.
Sir, am I asking you about the evening? I'm not, am I?
Continue.
Sir, I asked you a question. Am I asking you about the evening?
No.
Somebody else after this particular murder happened, right?
Yes. Pardon? I didn't hear your objection.
Objection as to him calling, referring to it as murder. Is there
I'll say killing.
Rephrase.
One of them is 417. Do you see this one?
objection? Are we still talking about the hard drive?
No, we're not.
And I thought, but it's their speeches. I think they use the term entertainment because it's entertaining training. Do you know what I'm saying? It's entertaining training, I guess you could say. Anyway, Hi. This is embarrassing. His dog jumped in the pool and sank right to the bottom. So that was scary. I guess pugs don't swim. He was saying that my brother was a faggot because his name is Carl.
What else?
I told him that he was named after my grandfather, and he said, "Your grandfather must be a faggot too, then."
What's a cream pie? You suck on them like they're candy, like they're lollipops. You just Happy birthday to you. And every time I scratch my nail down someone else's back, I hope you feel it. Well, can you feel it?
So I wasn't angry, I was just shocked. Like I thought, I'm sorry.
She's asking for themes.
No need to apologize to him, Jodi.
And I'm going to object to defense counsel's outburst. There's an objection. The court should rule before.
Yes, I'm going to roll in the objection. Let's not make comments. Ask the question. I'm going to sustain the objection. Ask your next question.
I put, are those man boobs or are you just ripped?
Okay.
I think I did, but it escapes me right now.
Okay.
Sorry I didn't sleep last night. My memory's shot.
No.
Did you like it when he called you a three-hole wonder?
No.
Ma'am, take a look at Exhibit 413. You recognize that exhibit, correct?
Yes.
And that's a picture of you, correct?
Yes.
Right here. And the other one is a picture of your dumb sister, Angela, correct?
That's my sister. She's not dumb.
But I honestly think, talking about Angela, she's a little bit dumb. You said that, right?
Yes, I called her dumb and stupid.
Did I ask you whether or not you called her stupid, ma'am?
No.
I asked you whether or not you called her dumb, right?
Yes.
Do you have problems with your memory, ma'am?
Sometimes.
So you can tell us, for example, what kind of coffee you bought at Starbucks back on June 3rd of 2008, but you can't tell us what you said yesterday or the day before?
I always got the same drink at Starbucks.
And he was there with the female, though. You were able to see her face, though, right?
Yes, sort of.
Well, yes or sort of means two different things. Yes or no. Were you able to see her face or not?
Part of it was shadowed from the
Yes,
TV
no,
behind her, so I saw part of it.
Judge, she's not answering my question. If you can instruct her.
Ms. Arias, listen carefully to the question and answer only the question you are asked.
Okay.
You may continue.
Could you see her face? Yes or no?
Part of it.
Her bubbles that's on top of.
Oh, I love the braids.
I know if they're hot.
That's your voice, right?
Yes, and Travis's.
Did I ask you if that was Travis's voice, ma'am?
I didn't know which voice you were talking about.
You worked at Mimi's Cafe, right?
Yes.
You had been working that day, right?
Yes.
Your shift was over, right?
Yes.
What time did your shift start?
It varied.
That day. What time did your shift start?
In the morning.
What time?
Sometime in the morning.
Your problems with your memory, is it of recent vintage?
Define recent.
I don't know. Since you started testifying.
No, it goes back further than that.
How far back does it go?
I don't even know if I'd call it a problem.
Well, just tell me how far back it goes. You said you were going to tell me, so tell me, please.
How far back what goes?
We're talking about your memory problem, right?
I don't know that I'd really call it a problem.
Okay.
I don't remember every single thing that's ever happened to me in my whole life.
Ma'am, your memory issues. We're talking about those, right?
I wouldn't even call them issues, but okay, my memory.
Well, you don't want to call them problems, right?
No, I don't want to call
You don't want to call them issues, right?
I don't know. I really
Right?
don't.
You don't want to call them issues. You just told me that, right?
I didn't say I don't want to.
All right, so can we call them issues then?
Okay.
What factors influence your having a memory problem?
Usually when men like you are screaming at me or grilling me, or someone like Travis doing the same.
So that affects your memory problems,
It
right?
does. It makes my brain scramble.
So you're saying that basically what you're saying is Mr. Martinez's fault, that you can't remember things that are going on.
It's not your fault.
I'm not saying that. You're saying that, isn't it?
No, I'm not saying that.
Is there something about a certain decibel of the voice that creates problems?
Decibel, tone, content, sort of a combination of those factors.
What are you trying to say?
Am I allowed to tell you what I'm trying to say? He is gay and he was acting dramatic.
And that's what...
I'm not sure about that.
Well, other than you, who would be sure about your statements?
God?
Well, God's not here. We can't subpoena him, right?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Are you sure that we can't? Because it seems like you're leaving the door open for that.
Objection, relevance, Your Honor.
Well, again, I ask you, do you have problems with your memory? About that, any events? It seems like you keep telling me that you have problems with your memory. Do you have problems with your memory?
Occasionally.
You didn't seem to have any problems on direct examination when you were talking to us about all the sexual exploits with Mr. Alexander, did you?
I did have problems.
You regaled us for days on end about his exploits, didn't you?
I wouldn't say regaled.
Okay, you told us about it for days on end, didn't you?
I just answered the questions
Yes
I was
or
asked.
no? You told us. When the question was posed, you told us, didn't you?
To the best of my recollection.
Is anybody saying that you didn't do it to the best of your recollection?
You're implying that?
Ma'am, isn't it true that what the prosecutor's implying is that you knew too much during the direct examination? If we're talking about implications.
Well, then that would be false.
Well, isn't it true that you had a great memory when you were on direct examination with regard to issues involving Mr. Alexander's sexual exploits?
Objection, I'm going to ask and answer.
That wasn't my goal. So.
Well, was your goal to go to prison?
Not a physical prison on earth, no.
Well, ma'am, was your goal to... So your goal was not to go to prison then, right?
It wasn't a goal of mine, I can say.
And in fact, that was something that you were trying to avoid, right?
I don't know. I was trying to kill myself, I think.
Ma'am, and that what you did then is you took a razor, right?
Yes.
And that you cut yourself, right?
It was a nick.
It was a nick. And because it stung so much, that you said, nah, this is not the way for me to go, right?
I didn't say that.
You said it stung and that's why you stopped. Isn't that what your direct testimony was?
That night, yes.
Right. And that's the night that I'm talking to you about, right?
Yes.
I'm not talking to you about any other night, am I?
It sounded like you were.
No. Just to be clear, I'm not talking about any other night, am I? Do you understand that?
Okay, I understand that.
And you nicked yourself and it hurt, right?
Yes.
And I think the word that you used, stung, right?
Yes.
To use your standard, ma'am, of how you stopped because it stung. Can you imagine how much it must have hurt Mr. Alexander when you stuck that knife right into his chest? That really must have hurt, right?
Argumentative.
Sustained.
If he's an afterthought, that means the primary thought that you had when you left Wairika back on June 2nd was to see Travis Alexander then. If Mr. Burns was an afterthought, as you say.
That's not correct.
Well, that's what you said, though, right?
No, that's what you said.
Mr. Burns was an afterthought, right?
No. It's hard to describe.
Yes or no? It's a yes or no sort of situation there.
It's not really. It's
It
something.
is.
It's not.
And it doesn't say anything there that he backhanded you, does it?
No, of course not.
Well, why not of course? You were free to write it down, right?
Yeah, but I would never do that.
I'm not asking if you would have done it, ma'am. Isn't it true that there's nothing there that says about that?
No, of course not.
You keep saying, of course not. You were free to do it, weren't you?
Yeah, but I wouldn't have.
But you didn't do it, right?
No, of course not.
Very soft kisses, right?
That's right.
Doesn't talk about anything with the backhand, does it?
Of course not.
Well, you keep saying, of course not. Please take a look at it. Don't say, of course not, when it doesn't say that there. You know that you don't really know what happens, is what you're telling me, right?
Yes, your compound question.
Restate your question.
You don't know what happens at family home evenings, right?
I only know what's happened at the ones
Yes
that
or
I've
no, ma'am?
attended.
I'm not asking you. Yes or no? You don't really know what happened at family home
I'm
evenings,
trying
right?
to answer your question, but you keep over-talking me.
I'm going to object to that comment by the defendant. She should be instructed to answer.
They were in his text messages.
Who's that?
They were in his text messages.
In his text messages to you, he said, I hit the door?
No.
In his text messages to who then?
Oh, I didn't say hit the door. I meant referencing that event.
I'm talking about hitting the door. Are we having problems communicating here? I'm talking about hitting
Yes.
the door. He did tell that to somebody?
No, yes, we're having problems communicating.
Did he tell somebody about it? Yes or no?
About hitting the door
The door, yes.
frame?
That's what we're talking about.
Because he didn't hit the door downstairs. He hit the door frame. The door was open. And I
All
don't
right.
know if he told anyone or not. I don't know.
Do you have a problem with your memory? I mean, this was approximately no more than 2 weeks away,
I don't think I have a problem.
but you don't remember things that happened within 2 weeks, do you?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
And in this case, you don't, right?
I don't remember if I gave you the details.
So the answer
or
is
not.
yes or no. Do you remember?
Remember what?
What are we talking about?
We're talking about the incident.
Right. And what specifically of the incident are we talking about?
I'm not sure.
So you're having trouble focusing on what's being asked of you today in addition to having memory problems?
Yes.
So then after 5 or 10 minutes, you left because you were going to go take care of this issue by speaking with Bianca, right?
First, I drove to Ashland.
Did I ask you where you went?
Yes.
No, I asked you whether or not you went to speak to Bianca. Did you go speak with her that day?
Yes.
Didn't you tell us that you drove an hour and a half?
I believe it was about that long.
And so you weren't going to put up with that either, were you?
Put up with what?
Well, what is it that we're talking about here?
Which part put up with?
Were you going to put up with what we just talked about? Are you having problems understanding again what's going on?
Sometimes, because you go in circles.
And you were very offended by that, right?
Yeah, offended would be accurate.
Right? And you were so offended that you still decided to go on vacation with him, though, right?
That wasn't why.
Well, no, you were very offended. You just told us that, right?
I didn't say very, but yes. I was
Okay, you were offended, right?
I was hurt.
Ma'am, didn't you just say you were offended?
Offended would be accurate.
And didn't you just say it was a good word, right?
Yeah, there's many descriptors to use.
But you just said just now it was a good word, right?
Yes, I think.
You think? It means you don't remember what you just said?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? You just said offended was a good word, and when I used it, then you took issue with it. Is it a good word, or is it not a good word?
It depends on how you used it.
Well, I'm saying you're the one that I asked you the question, that you were offended, and you said offended is a good word, right? That's what you said, right?
I think so, yes.
So, well, you think so means you don't know, right?
I don't know.
Well, this just happened. How is it that you are not remembering what you're saying?
Because you're making my brain scramble.
I'm, again, making your brain scramble. So, in this particular case, the problem is not you. It's the questions being posed by the prosecutor, right?
No, not
Yes
the
or no?
questions.
Yes or no?
I was saying no when you interrupted me.
So, no, so in this case, you're looking to point the finger at somebody else again, right?
No, it's my fault.
Well, you're saying it's the prosecutor that's asking you the questions, and that's creating a problem for you, right?
That's not what I said.
Well, you said it's the way you're posing the questions. You just said that, right?
I don't know.
You don't know what you just said, ma'am?
Objection argumented, Your Honor.
I don't know.
Didn't it just happen?
Yes.
So how is it that if it just happened, you can't even remember what you just said?
I think I'm more focused on your posture and your tone and your anger, so it's hard to process the question.
So the answer is, it's again the prosecutor's fault because you perceive him to be angry, right?
It's not your fault.
Well, is somebody asking you whose fault it is?
You did.
Well, you seem to be pointing it at the prosecutor, right? So you believe the reason that you can't be effective on the witness stand is because somebody is asking you questions in a way you don't like.
I think that was a compound question. I don't have a problem answering your question if I remember the answer.
So, but you just told us that you're having problems answering the question because of the prosecutor's posture. Didn't you tell us that?
That's not the direct reason, but that's a trigger.
Well, that's what you told us just now, right?
Something to that effect.
Right. And so, would you like it if I stood over here, like your counsel was asking you the questions? Would that make you feel more comfortable?
Objection, Your Honor, improper comment on counsel.
Sustained, rephrase.
Would it make you feel more comfortable if I stood over here and used the lectern, ma'am?
Why don't we approach him before he does the same thing over and over again, Judge?
Mr. Nurmi, are you asking to approach the bench with an objection? You may approach.
How is it that you can say, I felt like a prostitute, if you're the one that's sort of moving the relationship ahead?
Well, your question doesn't make sense to me. Well, when he jizzes on my face and throws candy my way and walks away without a word, it kind of feels like I was a prostitute.
Ma'am, that's not what you told us on direct examination, right?
I don't remember. That's not the fact.
Again, do you have problems remembering what you just told us less than a couple of weeks ago?
Occasionally, I guess.
And in this particular case, you're having trouble remembering what you told us as to how your father found you, right?
I'm having trouble with how you're characterizing it, I think.
Well, again, we're going to get into this word exchange issue, but it didn't work because you didn't know how to do it. Do you remember telling us that?
Yes, I remember that.
So now you remember, right?
Yes. Well, you said couldn't. It doesn't mean I couldn't. I just couldn't figure it out. It doesn't mean I couldn't take a video if I didn't sit and try to figure it out. But we were in the mood and didn't want to sit and tinker with it.
What are you saying? That's your whole statement, right?
Yes.
Involving that issue. And part of that statement says he was going to go up and take a shower and it took a lot of convincing prior when he was shaving, correct? That's what it says. Yes or no?
Yes, part of it.
Yes or no?
Yes, part of it.
Yes or no?
Yes, part of it.
You keep saying part of it.
Because you're not finishing the sentence. Maybe the transcriber put a period there, but that's not the whole sentence.
Do you remember telling us that?
Yes.
So which one is it?
It's both.
Even though you told Detective Flores nothing about that, right?
About what?
Well, what is it that we're talking about?
We're talking about a few different things right now.
Well, the last one that we were talking about.
The
Cancun issue, ma'am. You never told the detective about the Cancun issue, did you?
What Cancun issue?
Do you remember that we're talking about Travis Alexander? Let's start with that.
Yes, I remember that.
That's why we're here, because you killed him, right?
Yeah. He said fucking.
He said fucking what?
That I'm a fucking idiot.
Okay, he said you were a fucking idiot. But ma'am, this is a very small closet, isn't it?
No, it's bigger than the cell that I live in.
It's bigger than what?
It's bigger than the cell that I live in. It's not a small closet.
Ma'am, we don't want to know where you live in. Do you understand that?
I'm just using that as reference. It's not small.
Do you understand? Did I ask you where you were living?
No.
We're clear, right? We do not want to know where you're living right now. You understand that?
Okay, sorry.
No need to be. Take that attitude that... Is there an issue with you with answering the questions as they're posed?
Sometimes, but I'm trying to answer them the best I can.
So is it an attitude issue with you then?
Objection, argumentative, Your Honor. Move to strike.
Overruled. You may answer.
I don't think it is.
Ma'am, if you wouldn't mind, stand up, go to the left, and show me the posture of Mr. Alexander immediately before he rushed you, according to you.
As he was running...
No, just show me. That's what I'm asking you to do, not talk. Show me. Show me the linebacker pose.
He got down and...
Well, show me the linebacker pose. That's what I'm asking for you to do.
Okay. He went like that, and he turned his head and grabbed my waist.
Just like that, correct?
Pretty much.
And he grabbed your waist, right?
I can't say it's just like that, but that's what I remember.
Well, no, just I want, without talking, just show me the pose.
He got down like that.
Like that?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead and have a seat then. And you do acknowledge that if you're in a fog, you're in a fog about everything, not just certain specific things, right?
I don't know.
Well, it's your fog.
Is that a question?
Yes, it is a question, isn't it?
What is it?
It's your fog, isn't it?
Yes.
If you could turn. Okay, thank you.
What is your understanding of the word skank? How can you be a sister to Matt, someone you had sex with in the past? Did you ever see a doctor for your memory issues? Were you ever physical to Travis besides when you killed him?
Ma'am, one of the things that you told us was that you were going to tell the truth, the whole truth, throughout this proceeding. Do you remember that when you took the oath?
Yes, to the best of my recollection.
Am I asking you to the best of your recollection that you took the oath, ma'am?
Objection, argumentative, Judge.
Sustained.
You told us about that earlier, right?
Yes.
Well, this is one of the psychologists is Richard Samuels that you told, right?
That was not the psychologist.
Ma'am, I didn't ask you if that was one of the psychologists, did I?
That's how I interpret it, so I guess not.
I'm not asking you to interpret anything. If you don't understand the question, ask me, and we will repeat it for you. So, that means that if you didn't have the knife in your hand, you needed to go get it from somewhere, right?
I guess. I don't know.
No. There's no guessing here now. But you didn't remember where he had put the knife back then. That's what you told us on cross-examination. Do you remember that? Because the prosecutor was trying to ascertain from you where the knife had gone. Right?
Those two questions.
You dropped the knife. Where did you drop it from, if not your hand?
Presumably my hand. I just don't remember gripping it.
Did I ask you whether or not you had gripped it?
That's what I took it as.
No. Did I ask you whether or not you were gripping the knife, ma'am?
You didn't use those words specifically.
Right. I asked you whether or not the knife was in your hand. Do you remember that?
I just wanted him to stop.
Yes or no?
Okay.
And you take this, run into this closet to get that. What were you going to do with the gun? Throw it at him?
Objection, mischaracterizes testimony and is argumentative.
Sustained.
Began until sometime thereafter.
Judge, I don't think it was established. Did he establish that that was the name of the article, Amnesia and Crime? I don't think that was asked.
Yes, I asked if this was an article that he relied upon.
No, but is that the title is what I'm asking.
What was the title of the article that you relied upon?
Amnesia and Crime.
Thank you.
Sir, didn't you tell us just minutes ago that she was suicidal?
She told us she was suicidal.
I understand that's what you're saying now. I'm asking you to think. You don't have any memory problems, do you?
No. But the fact that whether or not they were pictures of breasts on the computer...
I'm not asking you about that.
You're not letting me finish.
Then Judge is non-responsive.
You may finish your response. Objection sustained. Finish your
Thank
response.
you. She had to attribute it to this made-up story.
You don't know that, do you?
No, I don't. I'm speculating.
Right. Made it up right now. Speculating.
No clinical judgment, sir. Clinical judgment.
Sir, you just used the word speculating, didn't you?
Okay, I used the word. I
Sure. Score of 69 is below the 75, correct?
The 75 doesn't mean anything.
Right, it doesn't mean anything. That's why they threw it in there, right?
You're misinterpreting
No.
I studied these tests for years, and you are misinterpreting it, sir.
Right. They put that number 75 because it doesn't mean a thing, right?
It means something, but not the way you're saying.
Well,
what I'm telling you is that...
Judge, he's being non-responsive.
I'm not going to be characterized as giving you the wrong information. Yes.
Listen carefully to the question. Mr. Martinez, restate your question.
Are you referring to this as an example of her saying something negative about Mr. Alexander? Or an example of her being assertive, at least in writing?
I thought we were talking about being assertive. Do you have a problem with remembering what I just asked?
No, I don't have any more problem than you do, sir.
Okay, so it's the 22nd of 2008, right?
Yes.
Well,
I'm going to object to this because he hasn't been allowed to refresh his recollection with regard to specific dates. These dates are not necessarily important to Dr. Samuels, so he would like to refresh.
I'm going to object to the speaking nature of this.
Approach, please, counsel.
With regard to question number 14, I know you had answered that there's one thing marked. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
He indicated it was given
Objection, Judge, to speaking objections.
To your speaking objection, approach, please.
I don't recall, and I don't know that I have a date on there, but what I did was that I calculated it twice. And I counted.
Judge, he's being non-responsive.
No, Judge, he's trying to answer the question.
Thank you. I can't answer yes or no, sir.
You don't remember saying that to a response to a juror's question, yes or no? And if you do remember, yes. And if
I don't remember.
Do you have problems with your memory then?
No, sir. No more problems than you do.
Sir,
overruled.
But based upon my clinical judgment and my expertise and experience, she met that criteria.
And you can bang on it all you want, and it's still your judgment, isn't it?
Of course it's my judgment.
So again, that speaks against what's in number 1, doesn't it?
I'm sorry, I don't see it that way.
Right, you wouldn't see that way because you have feelings for the defendant, right?
I beg your pardon, sir.
Jose, the objection.
My name is Alice LaViolette. I was asked to go to Sri Lanka and Maldives. I'm on the alumni board at Cal State Long Beach. I continue and have done training for churches. I continue to do volunteer work. I started my own practice in 1984. I'm working with a grandmother and her granddaughter now, and who has custody of her granddaughter. And I've done two groups a week for 34 years. I have been frightened probably 3 or 4 times in my career. I worked with the probation officers locally. I have a private practice.
Okay.
Spoken in a number of countries. I've spoken in Japan. I've received a number of awards. I've been very fortunate. And Farrah Fawcett, Julia Roberts played the lead. Jennifer Lopez, Julianne Hough. I don't know. I like people. I mean, people. I've always been interested in people. I find people ultimately interesting, you know.
Judge, may we take a break, please? I guess I'll get this out of the way now. Do you have a memory problem?
No, I don't.
You know what a clinical interview is, right?
Of course I know what a clinical interview is.
All right, then we seem to be having problems with it. With regard to a clinical interview, ma'am, isn't that a situation where you sit across from an individual and you talk to them about the issue that is at hand? Isn't that true?
You interview them, you ask questions, you do an assessment.
So when you are interviewing, you're not talking then, right?
Mr. Martinez,
yes or no? My question is, are you talking, yes or no?
Mr. Martinez, are you angry at me?
Ma'am, is that relevant to you? Is that important to you?
Ladies and gentlemen, please refrain from laughing in the courtroom.
Is that important to you whether or not the prosecutor is angry to you with regard to your evaluation? Does that make any difference to your evaluation whether or not the prosecutor is angry? Yes or no?
It makes a difference to me the way I'm spoken to, and I would like you to speak to me the way I speak to you.
Ma'am, is it true that just because the prosecutor is angry at you, is that going to make you change your answer with regard to whether or not this is a battering situation?
No, certainly not.
Answer.
Judge, she's trying to answer the question. Some of these questions cannot be answered by yes or no.
Ms. LaViolette, can you answer that question, yes or no?
I'm not sure at this point what the question is, because when someone is approaching in that way, it's very hard to listen.
All right. Restate your question.
Did you use this to tell us that the defendant was in an abusive relationship? Yes or no?
Objection, Judge. She tried to answer the question. He interrupted her.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes or no?
It's not a yes or no. Do you want the truth, Mr. Martinez, or do you want yes or no?
I'm asking you questions. You seem to be having trouble answering my questions.
I have trouble.
If you have a problem understanding the question, ask me that. If you want to do you want to spar with me? Will that affect the way you view your testimony?
Argumentative.
Sustained.
We approach, Your Honor.
Yes.
Tell me what negative things the defendant wrote about herself.
I thought you asked me if she said anything negative about Mr. Alexander.
Did you have a problem understanding the question? Tell me what negative things the defendant wrote about herself in those journals. That was my question.
Would you show me what you're referring to?
No, you're the one that just told us that you read journals before you came here into court, didn't you?
I did.
And you spent many hours, correct?
Yes, I did.
And you charged $250 an hour to read them, right?
The standard fee, Mr.
Am I asking if that's a standard fee?
Apparently not.
And ma'am, are you familiar, back in 2010, are you familiar putting on a seminar and indicating that Snow White was a battered woman? Do you remember talking about that?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
Do you remember that? Yes or no?
No, that's, if you would like to show the entire YouTube video, I would be happy for anybody to see that, because I'm not talking, the title is Snow White a Battered Woman because it was catchy. I don't know the age of the dwarfs.
Well,
I don't. I'm sorry, but I don't. So I really tried to look not only at Ms. Arias's perspective, but also at the perspective or the things that Mr. Alexander wrote that I had opportunity to read.
Are you done with your answer?
Yes, I am.
Now answer my question. When the defendant was about to be evaluated, isn't it true that she was happy because she believed that her IQ was as high as Einstein's? Do you know anything about that?
Yes, I do.
You were there, correct? At the presentation?
I was not only there, it was enjoyed by many people.
I'm not asking you whether it was enjoyed by many people, did I? Did I?
No, you did not. But I couldn't speak to Snow White, nor could I speak to the seven dwarfs.
So, with Alexander wanting to know about this information that this Michelle K. may have provided to the defendant, right?
Objection, Judge. Foundation, and the time and date of what we're referring to, please.
Yes.
It's exhibit number 444.
Right. What's the date? The text messages are dated.
Judge, it's improper. Her objection is improper. If she doesn't understand, that's the problem, not her.
May we approach?
You may approach.
No, I don't know. I don't have my CV with me, so I gave several keynote addresses, and if you are trying to trick me with a year,
Judge,
you can trick me with a year.
This is the issue we discussed.
I mean,
right.
If you will allow me to see...
Ms. LaViolette, hold on for a moment.
If you were in my group, I would ask you to take a time out, Mr. Martinez.
Judge, would you please admonish the witness to
Yes.
withhold those comments and ask that the
Ms.
jury
LaViolette.
disregard the outburst?
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, disregard the witness's last statement. Ms. LaViolette, please just answer the questions.
Have you seen When Harry Met Sally? My expertise is in domestic violence, not in orgasms.
You're only presenting things that benefit her.
Objection, argumentative.
Correct?
It was
This conversation where they are
It's my cell phone. It needs to be turned on. and I may have follow-up tests that
Yes,
I can do.
Ms. Lila, don't tell me about your personal issues.
May I have your name, please?
Janine DeMarty.
And typically it takes about a year to get your license, right?
No,
Well, typically you have to do 1,500 hours of work, don't you?
not postdoctorally in Arizona, no.
Okay. But you did, right?
I chose to do that.
So that was just your choice to do.
Yes,
Rather than get your license when you could have, you just waited for a year.
I didn't just wait.
Well, you didn't get it in 2009 though, right?
I did that on purpose.
That's what I'm asking. You did
Yes.
it on... Okay, so...
Overruled.
And when you're working for those places, you're called a fellow, aren't you?
I'm called Dr. DeMarty.
And at this point in time, you really didn't have much experience. You just got your doctorate a year before, right?
That's incorrect.
So you had lots of experience.
I had experience.
Okay, lots of experience?
I started seeing patients in 2004.
Okay, so when you start seeing patients, then that's what gives you experience. Then is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay, and so your education isn't necessary?
Necessary for what?
Well, to have the knowledge to do what you do.
Of course it's necessary. I can't give you a specific number, but there was a lot of records, as you know, a lot of videotapes to watch, police interviews. There was a significant amount of records, diary. If I gave you a number, I would be making it up. I don't know a specific number.
All right, well, you had a bill for this time, didn't you?
I did.
Okay, do you have an idea then what you billed for it?
I don't have my billing records. But I have spent a significant amount of time, more than I did, in talking with her. And part of that was because I did find some inconsistencies of what she was saying.
Yeah, you know what? The interesting thing is you're talking to me about inconsistencies, but that's not what we're talking about. So what we're talking about...
Sustain.
What we're talking about...
I can't give you a number, no.
Okay, even though you would have billed for it.
That's correct.
And for that, you would have billed $250 an hour, right?
That's correct.
And do you think it's over 100 hours?
I do not think so.
Do you think it's over 50?
Probably, yes, over 50.
Over 50, okay. And that's all hours that you're billing to the prosecutor, right? His office is paying you.
Correct. I send my bill to him.
Right, and then...
Except for the bill I sent to you.
Right, and that was for the interview, right?
That's correct.
Mr. Nurmi and I did with you.
Correct.
In your CV specifically, you don't list that you've had any specific interviews with trauma victims, right?
Because I don't list out my patients on there, that would be inappropriate.
Well, no, not their names, of course. But 2 of the PDS tests, it's talking about a description of the trauma that's bothering them.
Can you show me what you're referring to?
Sure. Do you want to see the questions, or?
Whatever you're referring to.
She saw that she had blood on her hands. She knew something bad had happened, right?
No, that's not what I said.
Well, but she's told you that, right? That she knew something bad had happened?
That she had killed him.
Right, and knowing that something bad had happened, right?
That would fall under the category of something bad.
Okay, and that you're telling me that abuse is a pattern. So if it's just one instant, then is that not abuse?
I'd like to clarify. Can I speak?
It's a yes or no question.
I don't believe I can answer in yes or no.
All right, so then that's a no.
No, I just said I can't answer you in yes or no.
All right, and you would want to look at then behaviors and investigate maybe whether or not there's any true meaning behind these words, right?
I couldn't do that because he's not alive.
So when somebody's not alive, you can't get any information from them. Is that what you mean?
From them directly? That's correct, because they're not alive. She would engage in behaviors that, again, to an outsider may be questionable as to how this would keep someone from abandoning them. For example, she was found hiding behind a Christmas tree. She would...
Scope and mischaracterizes not in evidence.
Approach, please.
It's not even about whether or not you like Jodi Arias. 9 days out of 10, I don't like Jodi Arias. If Miss Arias is guilty of any crime at all, it is the crime of manslaughter nothing more.
First degree murder, guilty.